everything made me so sad because Vari wasn't there. And graduation was the thing that I thought I almost dreaded it because Vari wasn't going to be there too. Um, so I remember crying about that with one of my friends and saying, um, for one, I felt guilty I felt bad for Corey and guilty about that. But also, it's like I just can't enjoy these. I can't make myself enjoy events that I know he should be at. And she said, "Well, Corey will graduate college, and you'll get to." She said, "That's okay. It's okay that you couldn't enjoy this one. You've got a couple of years, and you'll enjoy the next one." And I was like, I didn't even think about that. So we hope that I'll enjoy that one. I think I will.
Yeah. But I think that's a part of it. It's like, I never knew how much something could be so bittersweet and how much pain and peace can coexist at the same time until I've gone through this. Because even on my son's birthday 2 weeks ago, I went through that. I was happy that my son saw another birthday and that, he's still here and that we were able to celebrate him. But I got so sad that Damani wasn't here. Like you say, every celebration, everything is a reminder or a trigger
Mhm.
that piece of us is missing, that piece of our family is missing.
Right, right. I didn't know if that was something that happened to everybody, but that certainly was that whole first year especially. Everything was difficult for me. Um Even when Corey signed, he signed to play football in February, and Vari wasn't there, but he was still alive. He had just moved, and I remember Corey was just dismissed both of us, and he said, "Well, it's just a piece of paper. You'll be there to watch me play, and that's what matters." And then when he passed away in March, I thought about that even up until this year that he never got to see him play in college. And every time, Facebook memories remind you of things. And so every year on the day he signed to play football, that video will pop up. But I always thought, if I always wondered, I've never asked him, but if that bothered him, because we were just so certain that we always had tomorrow.
Right. Right.
Hmm.
We
Yeah,
always think we have
anybody's thought.
tomorrow.
Hmm. That wasn't a thought in his mind that, it's not a big deal. You'll see me play in August, and August came and he wasn't here. So
Yeah.
it totally changed how I started operating in my life. Um, I can't make other people change, but I certainly I try to live like I might just die tomorrow. I don't want to. I say things that I feel like saying when I feel like saying. them, you know.
I think this does that to us because I do the same thing, and I can't change anybody's mind, but I scream it from the rooftops.
Mhm.
That this is the way that I'm going to live my life. That
Mhm.
tomorrow's not promised. I live my life like I'm gonna die tonight. Every time I go to
Mhm.
sleep, I don't know if I'm gonna wake up the next morning. You know,
Right.
so what do I leave undone today? What is it
Mm.
that I want to do today? Like when I say what do I want to do in my life, is really what do I want to do today?
Right.
If it's worth doing in my life, then it's worth doing today.
Right. Say that. That's a whole sermon right there. That is a sermon.
But we
Mm.
didn't have that enlightenment before. We all knew life was short, but you think of something drastic happening, a car accident or something like that, but not someone just passing out that was healthy, no symptoms, no signs, no chance to say goodbye.
Mhm.
So it makes me look at it just differently, like,
Mhm.
wow, you
I think
know,
we all heard that saying that tomorrow's not promised. I knew it, but now I know it. It's different. It's just different. Now I
you
know
knew
it.
it, but
Mhm.
now you know it.
Right.
It's not
Right.
in your head, it's in your heart. It's a part of
Mhm.
your soul now. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Even if we look at a lot of people, whether
Mm.
it's child loss,
I'm so.
sibling loss, parental loss, some people grief can, really impact their lives and create habits if you don't have the right support or mechanisms and understanding of how to get through it. The helpfulness for me is what you do, not so much what you say.
Mm.
People think that they have to find the right things to say
Mhm.
to somebody that's going through this, but to me, it's what are you doing? So for me, seeing you getting up, and even you sharing, people say I'm strong, but I don't feel strong. And then for me, it's like a relief, like, okay, she don't feel strong either. And
Mhm.
people telling her that I'm not so crazy, I'm not so odd, but
Mhm.
I still can put one foot in front of the other and find a way through today, trying to find my way through today. And then not
Oh,
feeling crazy for the thoughts that come into our minds, like not expecting, like I don't expect, I don't have a high expectation for, things the way that I used to before.
all right. Mhm.
And saying
Mhm.
that to some people would sound crazy. They'll be like, oh, well, you need to talk to somebody. What they gonna tell me that's gonna make me feel differently? God done already showed me the way.
You know what? I told my therapist because I'm very honest about that. I before I even felt like I needed one, I immediately said, "Oh, I need a therapist," and was glad I found him before I thought I needed it. In fact, my first session, he said, "I don't think you're grieving yet," because I was still so normal. He said, I honestly think you're in shock," and I thought, "No, I'm grieving. I'm sad every day." And then about 2 or 3 weeks later, I thought,
This is what he was talking about.
yeah,"
I
because I
remember
wasn't.
I went to my doctor like the week after and I asked her for recommendations for therapists and she told me no, I wasn't ready yet. She told me to wait like a month. And I didn't understand why, but then when that month hit, I was like, okay, I was in shock. I didn't even know what
Right.
was going on. But
Hmm.
yeah,
I
yeah.
thought I felt bad, but it felt like a bad dream, really. And so I still got up. I was like, you know, I said, I'm still happy every day, but I don't think I can ever reach like the level of happiness that I was before because I'm sad and happy simultaneously. And I'll never forget him saying happiness is overrated. And I thought,
Talk about that. Oh my God, that is on my heart. I've been talking to people about that and how happiness is overrated. It is this thing, it's a facade, really. To me, it's a facade. We present happiness, but like right now, somebody can look at me and say, oh, she's happy again because I'm smiling, but that does not
stop
equate.
crying. I used to be offended when people told, I would never tell them this, but it almost offended me when they told me like, "Oh, you're so strong," and I thought that strength is a burden. Um, but I knew they meant it as a compliment, and I just didn't know how to not be strong. But I wanted to not be, if that makes sense. I thought I'd feel better if I could just break, and then I could be put back together. But instead, I'm just still dragging because I don't know how to break, and that's where I was
Yeah,
at.
yeah. And
Does
people
that
tell
make
me that a
sense?
lot too. It makes a lot of sense. And I wonder, do people tell us that we're strong because they need us to be strong? You know, I don't know because I didn't feel strong. I felt like I was breaking. But then sometimes when people tell you, oh, you're so strong, does it make you feel like, okay, well, I have to be strong because they're telling me I'm strong?
Right.
If I know in my heart there's not anybody here to catch me because everybody's telling me I'm strong enough to get through this, but I'm not
Right.
strong enough. I mean,
Mhm.
I broke several times.
Well, when people say you're so strong, I'd say I'm crazy. I still say that. I can't help it, but um, because I'm like, oh, I'm crazy. I've lost my mind. Because sometimes I felt crazy. I did. I felt like um, I had some thoughts that probably weren't healthy, but I could function and nobody know it. The difference is now I'm open about it and I tell people. But I can say for probably the first 4 months, I thought, and I don't even know if I should tell you this, I don't want to upset anybody, but I frequently thought, is he decomposing? Like stupid stuff. Like I could
That's not
not,
stupid.
I thought it was though. Or I would visualize, I was not there when he passed away, but I'd visualize it. Um, and almost like I tortured myself with bad thought, but I could not stop thinking things that upset me, but I could not control those thoughts. And I'd be at work or having a conversation and visualizing my son dying the whole time. So that's why I thought I was crazy because I thought, why am I thinking about these things? Um, but it
When you
passed.
say the decomposing thing, that's interesting. I thought about that. I wanted to know what was happening
Me
to
too.
him. And I remember one time, several months after, I went to the cemetery and there was a grave. You know how when they dig a grave that
Mhm.
they're gonna bury somebody, and so it was an
Mhm.
empty grave and it had like a plywood over it. And I
Mm.
remember going over to that grave and looking in and like visualizing myself in it. And
Mhm.
then I got upset. I upset myself but I just wanted to know like what is he going through? Like,
Mhm. Mhm.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I thought about that a lot, and I've never heard anybody else say it, and that's why I thought I was crazy. And I shared it with a friend who lost her mom, and she told me the exact thoughts that she had, and it was
yeah.
the same. And she was like, "It this month," and then she started looking it up. So she was, and I thought, "Oh, so other people have these thoughts," but because no one ever said it, I thought I was crazy. Which it even made me uncomfortable to say it. So maybe that's why people don't say it. Um,
I
but I
think
think
we get
other people.
concerned with how things are perceived. You know, we don't, like you said, you don't want to upset someone else, so then we don't speak up. But I think that us speaking up actually is helpful
Right.
for other people because, like, for me, that was the first time I heard somebody else had that thought. And so it kind of normalizes what I'm experiencing and helps me understand that I'm not so crazy.
I remember when it rained and I thought, is he still dry? That thing tore me up.
Oh my God, one
Yeah.
time it was really close, like a couple weeks after, like within the first 2 weeks. And it was raining really, really hard. And I just felt like God was like, for some reason, rewinding things and he was restoring things. And then I was like, he was gonna let him come back, right? And then I remember having the thought, because he's buried 45 minutes away. I was like, how's he gonna know how to get home?
Mm, mm. Oh man, I never cry. I've got some tears in my eyes. That's crazy. That's the oddest thing.
I know that happens to me. It starts leaking sometimes. You know, like you tears start coming, but it's like you don't feel overly emotional. It's like
Oh,
why are my eyes leaking?
I told some. I said my eyes cry when I'm not crying sometimes now.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, that does happen, but it does. It see even with me, you freed me because I had some of those same thoughts. Yeah, and I just didn't say a lot the first couple of months. I mean, like I said, I just carried on. I probably was stuck on being positive, and then after a while, I thought, the hell with that. It, and I told you it took for another mother to tell me she felt like she was falling apart, and people told her to look at me for me to start speaking out. And I always have felt like maybe it's easier to defend someone else than myself, and so I thought, no, she can fall apart in Walmart if she wants to. Just because I didn't, you don't know what I'm doing behind the scenes. I was never suicidal by far. I always joke and say I'm more closer to being homicidal than suicidal. But that's for sure. Yeah. I was angry. Um, yeah, and so yeah, I was angry at anybody that could make me mad. I didn't sit there and think I'm angry because my son's gone. I know that was why, but that was not my thought. You cut me off in traffic and I'm angry. Like I would just anything made me fighting mad. I wasn't just angry. I was like experiencing rage. And I knew like cognitively, like my brain knew that it was not normal, but I could not control it or help it. But I didn't act on it because I knew it wasn't socially acceptable. So I just held it, and my chest would start hurting, and then my eyes started twitching, and I thought, oh man, this can't be normal. Is this gonna go away? And other people had to tell me, oh, being angry is normal also. Um, and I thought, no, I'm not angry that he died. I mean, I'm sad about that, but, and it's something I processed with my therapist. He said, you are angry about that, and maybe you're just not letting yourself, realize that. So that's why everything else sets you off. I went to the doctor about it. I said, I'm losing my memory and I'm mad. I can't control my temper like I'm a teenager. And and that was what I likened it to, was like when you're a teenager and you're hormonal and you get mad, because I was like that as a teenager a little bit. And he said, well, you have experienced this trauma. And I said, well, nothing happened to me. And he said, yes, it did.
Mm.
And in my mind, I thought, well, something happened to him, not to me. And he said, your brain doesn't know the difference between the fact that um, he talked about a bear, and he said your brain doesn't know whether there's a bear chasing you or not. You know, he also compared it to having a concussion, which I've never had one, but he said if we looked at your brain under a brain scan, it would look like you had a concussion, even though your head wasn't hit. And
Wow.
he said that's why you can't remember anything. You know, your fight or flight begins to kick in. It's all of those things. He said your body doesn't know the difference, that it's not physically happening to you. And
Right.
that made me feel better because that spoke to like other things that I knew. I told you I'm an ACEs master trainer, and so I knew a lot about trauma, but I just didn't think maybe I didn't give myself the I don't know. I just didn't free myself to believe that I was supposed to have experienced
You
trauma.
didn't give yourself the grace,
Right,
the grace to understand what you were truly going through.
right.
Yeah. Yeah, the
Yeah,
trauma is severe. It is, and I've never heard the concussion analysis. That is a good one because I do feel if you put my brain under a scan, it's
mhm.
changed. It's different.
I remember him saying it. He said in about a year it'll go back to normal. So I counted that thing
I
down
don't
to
think
like a year,
so.
and I still wasn't normal at a year.
But that goes back to what people think about grief. Like a lot of the models on grief say that, after a year, people, but you really can't compare child loss to any other type of loss. I don't know how I'm going to ever be the same, and I don't think I will. But I say, in some ways I've evolved and I've become a different person, an evolved person that has an enlightenment that I wish that Damani was here to experience.
Right,
It is
right.
a bad experience, but I have developed an appreciation for life and for love and for the little things that I didn't have that I think only comes through something this traumatic.
Oh, for
Not that
sure.
I would want it. I don't want it. I would give it back if I could, but
Yeah.
it is what it is.
I yeah, I don't. I think I liked myself more before. I kept waiting to get back to who I was before. I've come to the realization I don't think I'll ever be who I was before, and I'm just okay with it. Um, I liked being silly and happy all the time, and I think I struggled with grief because I never knew what it felt like to be sad. And I had some traumatic things happen to me in childhood. I didn't certainly have the easiest life. It wasn't the hardest by far, but I had some things happen that no one would ever know because I'm telling you, you just couldn't shake me. And I was silly. I was class clown when I graduated. And I think I also gave myself a hard time about that because I said, I've had other things happen to me and I was able to always keep going and I can't get past this one. um, and that's something a lot of my friends and I had to keep bringing up my therapist, but my therapist said, you're so hard on yourself and you give everybody else so much grace. And I realized I was. I thought I should go back to work in 3 days. I just knew I couldn't. So I was like, well, they only give you 3 days. Why can't why can't I go? And I felt like, well, everybody else is okay by this time. Why am I not?
But
And
that's a portrayal that we put out. Nobody's okay after 3 days.
it took me probably not even 3 months before I finally freed myself to say, it was probably two months. And I said, I don't give a damn what it looks like to anybody else. I've got to do what makes me okay. So it didn't take me long to get there. Once I got there, I've stayed in that space where, although going to the cemetery, I told you I used to go like 3 times a day.
You
But
went to the cemetery 3 times a day?
all the time, girl, all the time, yeah. The first day I tried not to go. Sometimes I didn't even get out. I just had to drive up there. I think I was checking on them. I don't know what I really never processed why I had to do it, but it was almost compulsive for probably 6 months. I went every single day, and most days I went 3 times. It just became like compulsive. And the first time I tried not to go, I fell apart. I was driving to work and I started crying so hard I called and I said I can't come. And I turned around and drove straight to the cemetery. And I just realized it made me feel better. I don't know why. It was morbid to everybody else, but it made me feel better. And I didn't care what anybody else thought.
For
Um,
me, at the beginning, it was really hard going to the cemetery. Like I remember one time, and I just saw ants on the grave, and just all of those little things. Like I could just imagine that bugs were on him, you know. So it
wow.
was upsetting. I wanted to go, but I would come back and I would feel worse. And I remember talking to my therapist, and she asked me, you know, why was I going? Was it because I felt that it was what I was supposed to do, or was it what I needed to do? And so after having that conversation, I stopped, you know, with the expectation
Mhm.
and just tried to honor where I was. And now I'm in a place where I can go and
Mhm.
visit him, but I had to take a break for a time. Yeah.
It's thankfully I don't go very much anymore. Um, I had to. It was just one day I didn't have to do it anymore. I still
Yeah.
go, but not like I did.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I laughed when you said ants because my friend called me the graveyard lady because there were ants in different areas, and I bought like ant killer, and I would go around the whole graveyard, like killing like like I became like cleaning up everybody's grave while I was there. But maybe
You
I
have
felt like that.
a different respect for the graves and for, you know, the people that are buried there. I remember on Mother's Day, I wrote a blog about it, and I walked around just looking, and I just wanted to know how many mothers were without their kids on Mother's Day. And so I just started walking around and seeing so many kids' graves, and it just was so sad.
Mhm.
But I prayed at all of their graves, and you know, just you just have a different respect for it. Things that you didn't think about before. I never thought to walk around and see how many babies are buried in a
Mhm.
cemetery.
Yeah, my uncle's buried at the cemetery where my son is, and he was 3 months old. But I never processed how my grandmother got through that. You know what I mean? Never thought about it, but I found peace in that cemetery. And I think there's so many. I'm a Benson. My whole family is buried out there for the most part, and part of me felt like he's there with family. Um,
Yeah.
I used to maybe worry about death, my own self, and I'm okay about it now. Like I don't care. I don't want to die because I don't want to leave my other son. Like I would like to see some grandkids, but I don't. I'm not afraid to die.
I'm not afraid of it anymore, and I don't have this illusion of control over it anymore either.
That
You
part,
know, this woke me up to where, like, really, whether I'm okay with it or not, I'm not in control of when it happens.
right?
So, you know, I have to live my life fulfilling the purpose that God gave me
Hmm.
to make sure that, you know, when it's all said and done, there's nothing more that I could have done. Maybe a month, maybe a couple weeks after Damani passed, I made a list for my husband and started talking about my wishes. But it was something that, you know, we never really did before.
Right.
I even started talking about, at first I started typing right now who I wanted to speak at the funeral, right? And then as it got further along, I said, I don't want anybody to speak at my funeral. I've
Hmm.
come to that understanding. I said, we go through life, and I see how many people post things after somebody dies, or, you know, want to say certain things after someone dies, but really we've had their whole life to give our last words to them. So why do we want to say it when they can't hear it? So what's the point in someone speaking at my funeral? Whatever you had to say to me, you've had 42 years to say it to me.
Right.
You know,
You look like you're about 18.
Zoom, talk about it right now. Pick up the phone this week. You know, let's show each other how we feel about each other while we have each other, not when it's too late.
You just helped me. Just wow. You just helped me come to a realization about something, because you know the 5 stages of grief. And I always say, I think I might have told you this. I don't think I went through the bartering stage. I
Mm-hmm.
know I've told somebody else, but I think I did. Now something you just said made me think, oh yeah, the saying things to people. And because I do remember specifically, we were going on a vacation. Corey and I were driving to North Carolina to pick Vari up, and then we were going to go to um, Virginia, Virginia Beach. He's really close to Virginia where he was at. And so, and I pushed it back. We were going to go one week, and there were so many people out of work that I thought, well, we'll wait until spring break. And then spring break was the week after his funeral. And I remember just wishing, yeah, I did a lot of, I should have taken off, blah, blah, blah. I think it really made me hate my job, um, which I eventually left. I never told him that because I still loved the work I did. and I'm still there part-time, but I could not quite ever get over that part that I felt like I put all those hours into work, and I don't regret it because I knew I did it to take care of my children. But I also thought you can't put off anything to, you know what I mean? And I put that off for work, and then he wasn't there. I should have went ahead and did it. And I really remember thinking about that all the time. And I hated my job from the minute after that and loved it. I loved it the day he died and hated it the 2 weeks after.
Yeah, I can relate to that. You got me getting emotional now because I worked with youth. I worked in the schools, and I gave so much to. I mean, I'm not the type of person that can give 80%. You know, even before this, I was. And like you said, you liked yourself before this. I loved myself before this. I was a happy person. I was a motivational person. I was very positive, and now I do miss some of that, but I also do have a understanding that a lot of that just isn't all that it's cracked up to be, you know. But
Yeah.
when
For knowing.
when I lost Samani, I started thinking about all the regrets and all the time that I spent with somebody else's child.
Girl, I didn't want to say that, but that's it. Because you
Yeah,
know
I
that's
mean, I
what my
spent with
job.
everybody else's children, investing in other people's children, giving my 120% to other people's children. And then now that I need people,
Mm.
I'm all alone.
Girl, now that was a big spot. That was a big part of my anger. I went back to work. The last time I spoke to Vari out loud, I was at work. We text after, but that was our last verbal conversation. And he called me, and I remember we were talking about a couple of things, and I couldn't hear him well. Because a couple of the kids were just being really loud. One of them kept talking to me. And I said, "Well, you see me on the phone," and I was supposed to be off, but they were short, so I stayed at work and worked over. And so, of course, he had waited till it was time for me to be off to call. Um, and then I said, "Vari, I can't hear you. Can I call you back?" And then I went to start dealing with that child. And when I went back to work, I remember, and I probably shouldn't have, I wasn't ugly about it because I didn't feel angry, but I said that to him. I said, last time my son called, I couldn't hear him because you kept talking to me. And so,
Okay, so it ain't just me because I don't blame the young lady that I was with when it happened either. But in my mind, it took me a while to not think about that when I saw or talked to her.
yeah, every time
And
I
thinking
saw him,
about
I
the
thought
time
about
that the fact that I was with you. If I would have went home because I was supposed to be off already too. We had practice and she had a bad practice, and I stayed after with her to talk to her about what was going on emotionally, you know. That's the way that I always coach. So I didn't know today was going to be any different. You know, my kids need a little extra. I'm going to stay and give a little extra.
right.
So we talked, this conversation, this is the crazy part. We talked about death. And I told her that, you know, you can't live your life worried about death. You have to just do what's going to make you proud and make your family proud without being afraid of it. She was afraid because her mother was ill. And so she just was paralyzed because she was afraid of losing her mother.
Mm-hmm.
So I have this conversation with her. This is after practice. I should have been home. Then I take her and I drop her off. I come home. I just missed Damani by 5 minutes. And then the next time I saw him, I was giving him CPR.
Oh, wow. Wow. Um, mm,
But I didn't go, I never went back to work. I just couldn't, you know, and I needed to heal. I knew how I was. I needed to basically go into my cocoon. I knew that if I went back to work, I would start pouring into everything else and not really deal with how I felt. But I felt like dying. I felt like I didn't want to be here anymore. So how am I going to go and motivate somebody else and talk to other people about their problems? Because everybody always unloaded on me. And here it is, the time that I needed somebody to listen. And it was very hard to find people that were willing to sit through that discomfort with me, to sit through me being vulnerable and not being the helper, not being the motivator, being the one that needed help, being the one that couldn't move. I couldn't leave the house. I mean, I started thinking about Emily Dickinson because I taught English, and I was like, now I understand why she couldn't leave the house. She wasn't crazy. I used to think she was crazy. Now I see. she have a poem and it said, I remember looking it up after he passed, and it was called "I Heard a Fly Buzz When I Died."
Mm.
And I was like, oh,
It made sense to you then.
it makes sense.
It almost feels like you died and then you had to keep living. You know.
With this emptiness, this hole, this like a limb that's been cut off, right? But you
Yeah.
know how they say soldiers, when that limb is cut off, they can still feel it. Like they wake up and they have phantom pains. That piece that's missing still causes pain.
Right. That's it. That's a good analogy for it. Yeah, I didn't have that. Like I could always still leave the house. I just often felt like it was better for everybody else if I didn't, because I thought one day I'm just going to explode for no reason, or and then
Right.
like I was still kind to people. I don't want to make myself sound like I was nuts. I was kind. I was kind to the kids at work, but my thoughts were not the same. Like, oh, I'm sorry. And then I said, well, I couldn't hear him last time because you're being loud. And he was like, Miss Keisha, I'm sorry. I said, it's okay. Just, do better. Now that's
Right.
why I said that though. I look back and think that poor child. I mean, I was kind when I said it, but I should not have said it. But I recognize I shouldn't have been at work, because the very night I went back, it was third shift, and there was a child, and I can't believe I'm admit this out loud, but he was just really like showing out, and I said, I'm not gonna say his name, but I said, you should. I said, go to bed, baby. I don't feel like it tonight. He was arguing with the other staff. He said, I'm gonna go to bed because it's you, Miss Keisha. But I'm turning up in the morning. I said, okay, baby. Yeah, turn up in the morning. But when he went into bed, and I remember, like, I was like, he's still breathing. And I knew in that moment when I said that, and I said, I don't need to be here. Like, and he laughed. My coworker laughed at me. I said, I don't mean it. I don't want anything to happen to him. And then I just started crying. I said, my child never, you know, did anything, and he didn't get in trouble. And it's like, and these kids are going to live to be, 100 years old, and you just don't care. And I was mad. I was mad that everybody was breathing, but my child, I'm being honest with you. And I feel guilty even admitting that. But that was where I was at that time. Now that I'm not not there, I can admit it.
I remember that. I remember when I first, would leave, and I remember my son, my younger son, was playing football. So I tried to go and watch one of his practices with my husband. And I remember looking at kids leaving the school, and I'm just looking at them and I'm just like asking God, like, what makes them more deserving to still be walking and for my child to be gone? and
Hmm.
and, and it just was like, it just was so hurtful. And I remember being outside of like a Burger King one time, and I saw some kids getting off of work, and I'm like, why does he get to live, you
Hmm.
know and then it made me think of students that I've worked with, like you said, kids that would talk to me about getting out of juvie, robbing people at gunpoint, robbing houses, using drugs, kids who tell me that their parents don't care if they come home at night, they don't go home sometimes. And I'm just like, these kids that are they every kid deserves to live because they deserve to make mistakes, but my child was not doing any of that.
That was the part that seemed unfair. So you understand what I'm saying. I think
Oh,
to most people it
yes.
sounds harsh, but I did not begrudge the life of any child. I didn't want anybody else to die. I just thought how unfair that my son is not alive. Um, but now parents, I wasn't very kind. I didn't have, I will be honest, I had very hard feelings towards parents that I felt gave their children lesser care, especially the parents of the children that were in my care. I didn't let the children know it, but I really had hard feelings if I felt like your mom didn't call you enough, or whatever. And I thought I'd do anything. And I just thought, God, you gifted these parents, these children, and they're not taking care of them.
And I wanted to take care of mine forever. I was doing my part.
That's what I was thinking. I felt like I was punished. I didn't feel like Vari was punished, because I felt, I do believe in heaven, and I believe that that's where he went. But I felt robbed. I felt like it was a personal attack. You on me. I hate to say that, but I did. I remember telling Corey one time, I'm not crying for Vari. I'm crying for me, because I have to be here without him. Because Corey would try to comfort me and say, well, Mama Vari's in heaven. He's doing better than us. So I'm crying for me.
Yeah, I'm crying for me. I tell people that all the time. It's not us. It's not them that we feel sorry for. It's us because we're stuck here. And
Here
I
with
think about the fact, like, how many years am I going to have to live with this emptiness, with this void, with this pain? I see parents who live 20 years without it. And I remember that just being a frightening thought. Like, I can't imagine having to live 20 years
Mhm.
without my child.
Oh, I remember day 3 waking up and saying, this is the longest I've ever not talked to him because it had been 3 days. And then I thought, as bad as that felt, how am I going to make it 3 years? I can't go 3 days. And I remember thinking, I think I'll just die soon. Like,
I knew I was dying. I thought, I'm surprised that I'm here. I
mm,
did not think that and I started thinking about like how we say God is merciful. I'm like, God is gonna have mercy on me. He's not gonna make me live like this.
mm. And again, I didn't desire to die because I worried about Corey. But if it weren't for him, I don't know. Um, So I thank God for that child because he was my motivation to still. That's why I went back to work, and I still. We got the call at his track meet, and the next week I was at his track meet. But I'll be honest with you, I didn't want to be there. But I
Right.
remember he asked me, "Was I coming?" And I could tell he wanted me to come. Um, and I
Yeah.
well, he got the call there too, so it might be triggering for him to go. So I said I will, but I never want to go back to another. I would have never gone to another one if it were up to how I felt. But I felt like I've got to still be halfway normal for this child. And
Got to where I started to enjoy going for my son because, like you say, he is a big part of what got me through. And I feel so bad for parents who lost their only child. But I think that we cling to what it is that can get us through. So for people who lost their only child, it's still something there for them to cling to. So whether it's the memory of their child that passed, I have to keep going because if I stop going, then his memory stops with me.
right,
So that is a big driving force as well. But I got to a point where I enjoyed seeing my son playing football because it brought joy to him. That was like a form of therapy for him. And, I was happy to see him smiling and laughing again. So. Now,
football.
talk to me about this. You've said before, like the phases, like, so you've talked a little bit about just like that first day of what happened and your process of being in a cloud and letting yourself cry. But like that first year versus the second year, and now you're in the third year.
I
Right.
am.
So if you
Yeah,
separate 3 years for somebody like me who's just entering the second year, how do the 3 years differ from each other in your opinion?
I would say the first year was more confusion for me. I think that I personally was more. Um, I think I tried to look for the silver lining. I tried to like actively seek out something that was going to make me feel better. And, um, I thought I have to make it have been worth something. You know what I mean? But I was dissatisfied with so many things. I made a lot of changes in my life at that time. Um, like I changed jobs. I did a lot of things differently. Um, and then year 2, when I started settling in, I think that's when I really felt year 2 felt worse to me. Um, I think I was no longer confused. It was just the reality hit. And year 3, I'm not going to say I'm at peace with it because I'm not, but it has kind of cycled back to year 1 where I tried to find something positive or something to make his life and death specifically have had some purpose. Now I'm able to enact those things. In year 1, I was just trying to get by. In my head, I wanted to do some things, but I didn't know what I wanted to do. I no longer have the fears I had in year 1. I'm not as angry as I was in year 2, or frustrated. I was real frustrated year 2. Yeah, year 1, I was afraid people would forget him. And that was, I think I cried about that as much as I cried. I thought he was so beautiful and wonderful, had such a great heart, and nobody's going to know it but me. And I also think nobody's going to remember him like I do. You know what I mean? And I have found that to be the most untrue thing. And that gives me so much peace to know he's missed by so many other people that even though they were young, they didn't forget him. Because you expect young people not to really value life the same way. I don't know why. I think they value it maybe more. I wonder if I died today, I don't think that my friends would do uh, honor my, my memory like Vari's friends have. And I frequently think, well, I remember fussing at him for hanging out with this particular kid or that one. And they have proven to be the best gentlemen. Like, I love those kids. But that took that fear away. Um, the fear that I wouldn't be okay again. Well, I'm okay. I'm not the same. But I don't feel the pressure to be the same. I'm not as bubbly and happy, you know. But I'm okay with it, whether anybody else is or not. You know, I'm still happy. I'm not as happy, but I'm happy.
You are happy? When did you start finding happiness again?
I think I always was still happy. I just didn't think I could be as happy, if that makes sense. Well, let me rephrase that. I still had some joy, but I had lost my happiness. I find I had to think about that. I still have joy, but I've got a little bit of happiness. It just snuck back in, without me noticing it. I can't tell you when it came back because
You just looked up and it was there.
hmm it's still not what it was now. Let me say that. But I think I could reach like a level of elation before. So now I'm just more even. I'm just more calm. I used to be more optimistic. I'm not pessimistic. I'm just realistic now. I think my expectations um, are just, I just assess things for what they are and move on now.
Yeah,
It takes a
yeah.
lot to shake me now.
Do you feel like everybody has their time? Do you feel like regardless of what it would have been that perhaps Vari would have left at this time, or what are your thoughts on that?
Um, that's the only thing I can think and have some peace about it. Because if I think the alternative would make me probably not experience any peace at all.
Mhm.
Um, I certainly was not prepared for, and I fought myself for that. But as someone that has sickle cell anemia, I could think back to how many times I told my children, "You've got to be there for your brother, and y'all got to be close, because one day I might not be here, and you're going to be all you have." And so I spent poor children, I probably traumatized them, but I prepared them for my death. I never prepared myself for one of theirs. Because the thought, it never crossed my mind. I can honestly say it never crossed my mind. Um, I don't know if I prayed for them to have, you know, long life, because that's not what I thought about. I prayed for them to be happy and healthy and to know that they were loved and to find love. I wanted them to be successful, but I frequently prayed for their happiness. And then I'd pray, help me be who I need to be to help them be who you want them to be. And so the only peace I can find is to say he was who God wanted him to be. When I was mad that everybody else lived forever, um, my great grandfather, I knew my great grandparents, all my grandparents, everybody lived so long, but my child. That's how I felt. I felt like you took my child out of a family that everybody lives in their 90s. How did I felt? I felt robbed. Like I took it personally, and it's personal because I felt like my purpose was to be a mother. Um,
Mhm.
I don't know. I felt like that was my purpose. That that's the greatest thing that God could have gave me. I wasn't that kid that sat around and thought about, I want to get married and have kids. But when He gave them to me, I was dedicated to everything I did was to make them have a great life. Even Vari, I remember one of the things that I felt guilty about was I thought if I knew all the time he'd get, I would have let him have a little bit more fun because
Yeah.
I was strict a little bit. I mean, he had fun, I know, but I was trying to keep him safe so he could get into adulthood. Well, might would have let you act a little stupid if I knew, so you could experience the things I experienced in my mid 20s. But I was trying to, help you get there, and then you didn't make
Yeah.
it.
Those were some special babies we had, and like you said, God gave them to us. It was a special gift, that I appreciate, but I don't know. I mean, when you were talking about the phases, I'm like, oh, wow, because when you said like the trying to find purpose and meaning in it all, and then cycling back to that, because that's kind of where I'm at. Just like this has to mean something. His life has to mean something, has to fulfill some greater purpose, larger than me, larger than what it would have been if he was here. So I'm still searching for that and trying to find that and trying to find peace daily, because every day is a new day that I have to find peace all over again. It's not like just because I found peace yesterday, it's still here. It's a
You have
process.
to.
Yeah.
It is. So,
What helped you the most through this process then?
being honest. Stop being. I stopped being afraid because grief is uncomfortable, right? And it makes other people uncomfortable. And I started sharing. I told you I initially shared something because I was defending another mother who had lost a child, but then I just kept sharing. And I found the more I poured it out, it was just like a release. It was cathartic for me. Um, and I think that's when I started healing, when I started speaking up and speaking out. Um, I reach out to other mothers sometimes. I've had some reach out to me. Um, I had some of the best friends, but I'm gonna tell you, I always felt better talking to another mom that had lost a child because I felt like they were the only people that really understood. And I've met some of the best people that that's happened to, so that allowed me to stop feeling like I was being punished or cursed, or because, well, certainly not all of us, because these are great people. If I feel badly about myself, I don't feel like they're bad people. So that freed me.
Mm-hmm.
And just let myself feel what I want, what I felt, and just let myself work through it.
Yeah.
Um, we don't free ourselves to do that.
Right.
So
What do you think society can do better to support people that are grieving? Like to support
shut
us
up.
to start freeing us? What'd you say? What?
Uh, shut up. you know,
But I think on one level, sometimes they do shut up. They, like you said earlier, like it
well,
was
they
probably,
they can ignore you. I don't want you to
that's
ignore.
what I mean. Yeah, I feel like too many people just take the easy route and say, well, I don't want to say the wrong thing, so I'm just gonna pretend that you're strong and you're okay and stay out of your way. But like most of the support that I received was in the first month. And both of us just shared earlier in this call that for that first month we were in shock. And therapy wasn't even really something that was working in that first month. So it's after the first month, but in society, we think about 2 weeks after the funeral, that's how long people need support. We deliver a few meals and then everybody thinks that things are back to normal. I still don't cook hardly. And I used to cook
Girl,
all the time.
now I didn't cook for almost 3 years, and that's not an exaggeration. So I just stopped. So that's funny that you said you stopped too. But as far as people, people said things that made it worse, and so that's why I said just shut up. I had a friend named Valerie Mobley, so I'll shout her out in case she watches this. We never talk anymore, but she came to my house, and I remember for most people, I felt the need to entertain them, like, "Hey, blah blah, you need something to drink?" And, "Oh yeah, I'm okay, and God's good," and all blah blah blah. And she came over, and I have just known her since I was 9 years old. And although we never talked, something in me must have felt comfortable. I laid on the couch and slept. I slept for a whole hour, and she sat there. She didn't wake me up. She sat there and watched TV, and I woke up, and I remember I jumped. I said, "I'm so sorry." She said, "You need to sleep. That's fine." And I remember when she left, I said, "Just be there. Don't make me feel like I have to talk." Like, she was so helpful because she just let me be, and we didn't have to talk. Her presence was comforting, and I didn't require her words. because when people start talking, that's when I get pissed off. And I didn't want to let them know I was angry, but I was. I didn't like people to say to me, "Well, God loved him more." I don't want to hear that. Don't tell me to pray. That pissed me off more than anything. You pray. Um, Praying
And with
wasn't.
that, let's talk about that one. That one implies that goes back to the guilt that we already feel. So you acting like you better off than me, or God is doing this to me because I didn't pray enough.
Right.
That's
My thought
hurtful.
was, what they didn't know was the last prayer I prayed on my knees praying was for my child to be okay. And that prayer wasn't answered. So I wasn't praying anymore right now. That didn't mean that I still believed in God. I loved him. Thanked him. I was mad at him for taking my son at 21, but thankful I had him 21 years because that's more than some people got. So I still loved God, but I wasn't talking to him. And so you can talk to him for me. It's kind of how I felt, but don't tell me to pray because I'm not going to do it. And that made me mad. And I thought, shut up. Why would you say that? I was raised in church. You're not giving me information I don't already have. I know I need to pray, but I'm not going to. So shut up. But I think they just say what they want to say. Oh, what really triggered me one time, it didn't make me angry, but it made me sad, was when someone said, God loves you so much, he woke you up this morning. And I thought, well, I wanted him to love my son enough to wake him up. That took me, oh man, I'm about to cry now thinking about it. That took me over the edge because I thought, I didn't want you to love me this much. I wanted you to love my son that much. But that's a lie. He loves us all the same. So I don't even know if that I think we should say that
I
because
think,
that
and two, with that one, for me, when people post like, "Oh, you woke up this morning, smile because you woke up this morning," those really make me mad because it's triggering. It's like you don't know the pain that I wake up with every morning. So why do you want to make me feel bad for not being appreciative for the fact that I woke up this morning, or not? I'm not so much appreciative, but not smiling and being in a positive mood just because I'm up this morning. Because in the morning, I'm reminded that my son didn't wake up.
right. So I think people just don't think. I think it's okay just to say, when people would say to me, I don't know what to say, I'd say, I don't know what to say either.
Yeah, there's nothing to say.
There's nothing to
There's
say.
nothing you can say
I
that can make it
appreciated that
better.
more. I appreciated that more than I appreciated um, the advice that I felt like, well, Vari would want you to live. You don't know what Vari would. That used to make me mad. Like, don't speak for Vari. Vari would not want me to sit around, but I am living. I'm doing. I think Vari would be proud of me that I'm still getting up. So, that I'm not bald in the corner. And if I did that too, he would still love me. So don't do that. Like, that just made me angry.
Yeah,
Because I feel like being sad does not mean I'm not living. Um, and then I came to the conclusion, I'm okay. You're uncomfortable that I'm sad, but I'm comfortable in my sadness, as a matter of fact.
yeah,
Um, because there's more anniversaries than the day they died. Um, there's the anniversary of like their birthday. You have their birthday. For me, Mother's Day is a big trigger. So I have the day that he died. Then comes Mother's Day. Then comes the day I got his autopsy. I remember, I remember that. Then, I'm okay until Christmas. I can get through Thanksgiving, but Christmas is bad. Then his birthday. Then the last time I talked to him, the last time we text. Like, there's all these last. And so every time I thought, oh, I'm close to a last, well, let me keep seeing my therapist a little longer. But now I think I'm past that now. But I
um,
found it helpful. I did.
yeah. You're so right with all those last memories. Those are very, very hard, and especially knowing that it's the last. When you look at other people still living and making new memories, and it's just something that we'll have to always push through. Always have to find a way to get through. And for you to have been able to find, I'm still looking for that happiness. I feel still like, you know, but
Yeah, it'll come.
I can smile and I can enjoy moments, but I don't equate it to happiness.
Hmm.
I don't
Right. Well, you
equate it to
probably don't
happiness.
really feel it. It probably doesn't feel like happiness yet. You can probably laugh.
Oh
There's
yeah,
like
I've laughed.
there's a little. That's why I say that's a joy. I think joy is just in you. With I think you find happiness. I think joy, you don't find it. It's just there. And so I think I still had the joy that maybe was God given, but the happiness, um, I couldn't get to that again. But I got a little bit. Ain't what it was.
I have moments of it. It's not that I don't feel it ever. It's just that I don't feel happiness. I can be happy in moments, but I don't feel happiness.
Hmm. I
Yeah.
do. I think it'll come. One of Jacori's friends, um, his mother lost his aunt died, and it helped me to help Corey when she told me the hardest part of losing her sister. She said, "I love my sister, and she's my best friend, but the hardest part was that I kind of lost my parents too, but watching them grieve." She said her parents were never the same again, and I didn't want him to feel like that. So it made me kind of pull myself together a little bit. But I talked to her mom, she's in her late 80s. And I remember her telling me it'd been 35 years since she lost her. She said, and I still cry sometimes. And that freed me a little bit too, because I'd been rushing myself to like, why aren't you okay yet? And her daughter'd been gone 35 years, and she still cried about it. She said, I still miss her every day. I
Yeah.
still think about her every day. She said, and I still cry sometimes, but it'll get better. And I knew she had lived through it, and she was open about it, because a lot of people have lived through it, but they don't talk about it. Um, and she was open about it. And so I thought, well, if Miss Evie made it, I can make it too.
Yeah, and that goes back to what I said at the beginning. It's not so much anything that anyone says, but seeing that people have survived this. Because at first I didn't think that I could survive it or that I would survive it. And with that happiness thing, I just like when you said your therapist or the doctor said at the beginning that it's kind of overrated. I just see that as a society, we put a lot more value on happiness than is necessary. Even if we look in scriptures, it's not something we were definitely promised in this life, or that is equivalent to a good life. If we look at a lot of the prophets and servants of God, they didn't necessarily experience happiness, they experienced fulfilling purpose. And so now, where I may have been more focused on being happy, I'm more focused on fulfilling purpose. I'm focused on that so that I can feel peace, because I think peace is even more valuable than happiness. There's people who
Now,
say happy that ain't at peace and that's ready to jump off of bridges.
now you said a mouthful, because I mean, that's just one of the things that I verbalized with my therapist, was that I just want my peace back. I don't think I cared if I was happy. Now, I wanted to present as happy again because I didn't want people looking at me funny. So I was like, but I don't feel like joking and making everybody laugh anymore. And when he said happiness was overrated, that freed me a little bit.
Yeah,
But boy,
that
that was
peace.
the main thing that I don't, and that's what I lost though. I had lost more than the happiness. I lost my peace, and didn't realize how much peace I had until that happened. Honey, I had no peace. That's what I didn't have. Um,
I think I
I think.
found peace more so in the surrender, and just knowing like, okay, but you wrestle with it, because some days you're more able to say, you know what, God is in control. This is what He wrote for us to occur. And then some days you get back to like, well, why did it have to be my destiny? But when I surrender to that, then I feel a little bit more peace and I feel capable to move through it.
The hard things I've been through, I got through it because of my kids and God. When I think about losing Vari, I believe He can see me, and I want Him to be proud. So I refuse for this to break me. I want, when I see Him again, for Him to know I did this for you. Um, but yeah, I don't know if I surrendered to, well, this was just fate. I'm still mad about it, if I'm gonna be honest. But
I'm
anger
still
can
mad about it. I'm still mad about it, but you can be mad about it and surrender, I feel. Yeah.